If you haven't explored Sauvignon Blanc all that much, it's a fascinating grape as well to explore. If you're stuck with your Chardonnay, well, maybe try Sauvignon Blanc, see if you like this passion fruity, this grassiness that the grape develops. Hello, bonjour, this is Julien, the French winemaking guy who makes wine videos here on YouTube. Yes, wine videos, and this is a video where you learn the essential differences between the two most popular styles of white wines. Of course, I'm talking about Chardonnay and Sauvignon Blanc, and we'll look at the key variations between the French ones in particular and the California and New Zealand styles as a contrast. So make sure to stay tuned for that. But before we get into this fascinating video, I must tell you that it is brought to you by what is possibly the best wine club in America. A wine club I work closely with as a consultant and video maker that is called the Bonner Private Wine Club. How does that work? Every quarter, essentially, we select 6 bottles of wine imported to the US from small producers that really have a passion for what they do and the wines that they make. We taste dozens and dozens and dozens of wines to find the absolute best ones, those little gems that no one gets to try, so you always get the best value for money. And every quarter you get a selection from a different country, from France, from Italy, from Spain, Australia, Argentina and beyond. So we explore the world of wine together. It's just an amazing journey to share with you, and we not only send you the wines, but we also tell you the stories behind the wines, the producers, through video forms, because when you know the wines that you buy, you enjoy, appreciate them better, and you share better moments with your wine friends. We educate our members as well with a weekly newsletter and videos such as the one that you're about to watch, that our members get exclusive access, early access to. Anyhow, to learn more and get access to those fantastic wines and get a $50 discount when you sign up, check out the link in the video description. But enough said, let's get into the video. This is an episode we released a few months ago to our club members comparing Chardonnay versus Sauvignon Blanc. Let's go. Hello, bonjour, and welcome to your new Bonner Private Wines video. I'm your host Julien, and today we're going to be comparing the two most popular types of white wines, the two types of still whites that you're most likely to find on the shelves of your local wine shop. So the next time you go there, you know which one you should pick, and more importantly, why. We're going to be talking and comparing those two types of white wines that are made from two different grapes, both originating from France, but we're not only going to be talking about French wines today. On one side, we're going to have the Chardonnay, the most popular of all white wines. That's true in the US, but also all around the world, to the Sauvignon Blancs on the other side. So I'm going to be telling you what are the key characteristics of these two wines and how they differ when you taste them one from the other. I'm going to be tasting all of these 4 wines. And then I'll go one step further, comparing those two Chardonnays. There is one that comes from the famous French wine region of Chablis, which is a very famous type of French Chardonnay from Burgundy, with a California Chardonnay, an iconic Chardonnay wine, namely Rombauer. And then I'll be tasting a French Sauvignon Blanc from the Loire Valley, from the homeland of Sauvignon Blanc, to a Sauvignon Blanc from a country that's become very, very popular for producing Sauvignon Blanc wines, namely New Zealand. But before we get to tasting, just a few words on those two different types of wines. So first, they both originated from France and they've both been planted virtually everywhere around the world to become the #1 and #2 white grapes as far as international wine grape varieties are concerned. So Chardonnay originates from Burgundy and that's around the center, deep inland the country of France, in the northern part of France, while Sauvignon Blanc comes from the Loire Valley, that is virtually covered with France's king's castles, a beautiful Loire Valley, more on the western part of the country towards the Atlantic Ocean. So the top producing countries for Chardonnays are France, #1, still the biggest producer of Chardonnay wines in the world, but closely followed by the United States. As you know, Chardonnay is very big in the US, very popular, being there the most appreciated white wine in the country, full stop. And there's also plenty of Chardonnay planted in Italy and produced in Italy, in Chile, in South Africa, in Spain, in Argentina, everywhere. As for Sauvignon Blanc, France is also the biggest producer, but closely followed by New Zealand, the wine I'll be tasting later on here. You'll often find plenty of Sauvignon Blanc from California at your local wine shop, and in the US you'll very often find it as Fumé Blanc, as a wine called Fumé Blanc. But let's get tasting and find out what are the differences between those two different white wines. I can already see that there are some differences in the color. So to compare those two grapes, I'm going to be focusing for now on the French wines. I'm going to be focusing on the original expressions of the grapes. In chapter 3, I will be getting into the regional variations and comparing with the US and the New Zealand variations of the same grapes. But let's stick to the French wines for now. So on my left, I poured the Chablis wine, a region in Burgundy that is extremely famous for producing pure expressions of Chardonnay on a beautiful limestone terroir, so mineral Chardonnays that are often not very oaky. So you're getting the pure expression of the Chardonnay grapes on a limestone terroir, which is very mineral, and that makes really fine Chardonnay wines. On my right here, I have a wine that comes from a village that is called Sancerre, which is really where Sauvignon Blanc originates from. So we are very high on the Loire Valley, around the very center of France. And also here they have some very specific terroirs, a lot of limestone, a lot of flint as well, very rocky soil. So they're getting a very mineral expression of Sauvignon Blanc. But let's get into tasting those two wines. So let's start with the Chardonnay. So typically here we are getting hints of lemon and delicate citrus characters, together with a bit of brioche, a bit of buttery element to the Chardonnay wines, and those are the key features of a Chardonnay wine. It smells buttery, it smells opulent, it smells quite tempting, really like a freshly baked cookie with some lemon zest on top of it or something like this. This is round, it's got a full body. You can feel a bit of an oily texture on your palate. Yes, it is zingy and mineral, and that's what you expect from a good Chablis. You're getting the acidity that shines through and that makes these citrusy flavors burst on your palate, but you're also getting the full body and oily texture that underlines the buttery, brioche, sort of almost fatty characters that you expect from a Chardonnay. On the finish, there are a few spices, sweet spices, a bit of clove, a bit of cinnamon, a bit of white pepper as well, and that's often related to Chardonnay being at least a little bit aged in oak barrels, which adds a little bit of oxidative character, a bit of waxy character, a bit of length, a bit of spices to the finish. And there is also a little bit of tropical characters, a bit of pineapple, a bit of lychee characters to it as well. Let's dig into the French Sauvignon Blanc from Sancerre. So first off, you could probably see that the color of it is a little bit more on the green side of things, while we were a little bit golden here. Here we're definitely green. It looks like you are looking at those green grapes you know, just the color from the grapes. And that's because, generally speaking, Sauvignon Blancs do not see a lot of oxygen during the winemaking process, so they preserve that impeccable greenness from the grapes when you look at them. But let's have a smell at this Sauvignon Blanc. So definitely here, what jumps out of the glass, and you've probably experienced this if you've tasted a Sauvignon Blanc, are the big powerful citrus characters, but instead of being just on the lemon, here we are on the powerful grapefruit. There's also an explosive character of passion fruit, a lot of tropical characters, and it smells also very grassy. It sort of smells like freshly cut herbs, freshly cut grass, and that's extremely typical of Sauvignon Blanc. So typically, while we had an oily, soft body here it's dominated by a vibrant, a sharp, a crisp acidity that makes you salivate. An explosion of this very grassy, grapefruity, it's kind of almost like biting. If you bite into an entire grapefruit, it's so explosive and grassy and citrusy, it's almost bitter as well. And this is also very characteristic of Sauvignon Blanc. So those two types of wines appeal to kind of different palates of different tasting experiences. Some people would like their Chardonnays better because it's softer, it's milder, and maybe it appeals to a broader audience, hence the success of Chardonnay, while Sauvignon Blanc is really about the intensity of the acidity and the vibrancy of the citrusy, grassy characters. Sauvignon Blanc are absolutely perfect to go with seafood dishes because of this strong acidity that it adds. It's like squeezing lime or freshly squeezed lemon of grapefruit on your fish or on your seafood dishes, and it's absolutely perfect for this. Sauvignon Blanc is also going to be wonderful on some goat cheeses because the goat cheese is acidic, so is the Sauvignon Blanc. The Chardonnay is going to be very, very versatile and go on an extreme variety of flavors because it's discreet, because it's soft and mild, and it's always going to respect anything that you're going to have with it, while the Sauvignon Blanc is quite powerful, so you do not want to have it on dishes that are too mild. But let's dig into the regional variations of those same grapes. So yes, beyond the variation between two different types of grapes, there can be quite an immense variation between different countries and even sometimes even between different regions. So let's dig into the type of variation that you can have even within Chardonnay, comparing the French expression that I've talked about, the Chablis, which is rather pure, the pure expression of the fruit character with just tiny bit of oak, to an iconic wine made in the Carneros area of the Napa Sonoma Valley. So we are down very south of the Napa and Sonoma Valleys, around the San Pablo Bay, for those who know the area. And this is Rombauer Vineyards Carneros Chardonnay, which has sort of become a bit of an iconic California Chardonnay. I mean, iconic in the sense that it is a very common one and one that is really archetypal of the Chardonnay style. It's also renowned, I'll let you know straight away, I have never tried this one before, but it's also renowned for being very, very oaky and being a little bit of this old style of a very oaky California Chardonnay wines, hence me interested in tasting this wine for you. Let's dig into what it smells like. You can already see that the color is much more intense with this Chardonnay, much more golden hues in here than there was in the French wine. Probably again because it's going through oak, the oak bringing in some color, some additional color, as well as a bit of oxygen, which kind of oxidates and makes the color a little bit more intense, a little bit more involved. But let's see what it smells like now. Wow, yes, so I'm definitely getting a lot of oaky character. Those come through as a bit of a wood smoke characters and big burst of vanilla as well. A bit of coconut or coconut milk expression in there as well. If you dig well enough into the wine, yes, you may feel a little bit of lemon, but it's more on the lemon comfy or the lemon marmalade here. And there's a lot of tropical characters here, a lot of pineapple, a lot of mango, and this is because California, generally speaking, has a much warmer climate, so the grapes are much riper and they come through with more generous fruit expression, tropical expressions, as opposed to the lemon, limey characters that you'll find in the French wine. But let's dig into what it tastes like. Wow. Yeah, so the oily texture that I was talking about before here is sort of exemplified, it's amplified, it's super oily on your palate. It coats your palate with this oily texture. There's some tannins coming from the oak, and the explosion of flavors here is definitely all on the caramel, on the cinnamon, on the vanilla side, everything oaky, everything generous and opulent, with a huge burst of tropical. The mango here is what shines through for me, and I can also feel a bit of the heat of the wine, a bit of the alcohol, where I couldn't definitely not find it here on the Chablis wine. But let's dig into the two expressions of Sauvignon Blancs and see what they taste like. So let's compare the French Sauvignon Blanc that I was telling you about before, that is nice and crisp and zingy, to its Kiwi counterpart that is called Tohu Single Vineyard Sauvignon Blanc. So this is grown in the most famous region in New Zealand for growing Sauvignon Blanc, which is called Marlborough, the Marlborough wine region. One of the first differences that you are going to be noticing between French and Kiwi Sauvignon Blanc is that the Kiwi Sauvignon Blanc is going to have a screw cap as opposed to a cork. Which one is best, I'm not going to enter this. Let's say that both are really good. Screw cap is not only for cheap wines, it can be extremely good for preserving the flavors and the pure expression of the grapes, and that's why the Kiwis love screw cap. You have less risk of having a corked wine with screw cap as well. But let's dig into what this Tohu Single Vineyard wine smells like. So I was telling you that the French Sauvignon Blanc before is a little bit limey, is a little bit grapefruity, very vibrant and a little bit grassy. First off, the Kiwi Sauvignon Blanc has very similar color, in fact. Wow, okay, so it's much more powerful straight away. I'm getting a huge explosion of passion fruit characters, and it's kind of a little bit sweaty passion fruit, and that's a term that the Kiwi use for the Sauvignon Blanc, and I live in New Zealand for about 6 years, so I do know quite a fair bit about Sauvignon Blancs. They talk about sweaty passion fruit because it's not only the fruitiness of the passion fruit, but it's also the sort of bitterness of the passion fruit that comes through as well. Huge explosion of this as soon as you stick your nose into the glass. Zingy, crisp, vibrant, crystal, sort of, you feel like you have crystals of acidity on your palate, very fresh, very zingy, just like the French Sauvignon Blanc. The big difference here is just the flavor, the aroma, intensity that you find in the Kiwi Sauvignon Blanc. Explosive expression of this grapefruit, of the passion fruit, of the fresh pineapple. It's like biting into a very fresh and not so ripe pineapple, you know, this biting acidity that you're getting from the pineapple as well. Extremely powerful. It's a beautiful wine as well, very balanced, very elegant. It's a little bit like this, I can't remember the name in English, this lemongrass, I think you call it lemongrass. There's definitely a lot of lemongrass, like biting into lemongrass when you taste this wine. The French Sauvignon Blanc perhaps a little bit more restrained, a little bit more elegant as well. I guess the French one is perhaps going to respect the food a little bit better, overall be a little bit more versatile, while this is so explosive that you will have to be careful what you're pairing this with. But Kiwi Sauvignon Blanc is perfect with Asian dishes as well, because they can be quite powerful, quite spicy as well, and this has so much flavor intensity that it can withstand being paired with very strong dishes. My conclusion, there is a different wine from different occasions for different palates. Everyone has different taste. I personally do not like to rank different wine styles. I guess I do have my personal preferences, but I can see the value in all of these different styles of wines, and all of those are very beautiful, superb wines. Which one is your favorite? Well, I'm guessing you've explored a Chardonnay already, or at least California Chardonnay. It's a very good style of wine, but it's quite opulent. It's very, very oaky. If you haven't tasted a French Chardonnay, well, give it a try, maybe to a Chablis, to experience something a little bit more subtle, a little bit more elegant, and I guess you will find something interesting perhaps in a Chablis, a Burgundy Chardonnay, for example. If you haven't explored Sauvignon Blanc all that much, it's a fascinating grape as well to explore. If you're stuck with your Chardonnay, well, maybe try Sauvignon Blanc, see if you like this passion fruity, this grassiness that the grape develops. There's also a huge variation of Sauvignon Blanc wines from Napa Valley, from the US, from Sonoma County, from Santa Barbara, all across California, and I think even from Oregon. And there's a big variation between the New World countries such as New Zealand or Australia and the French homeland of the Loire Valley in France. Loads and loads of discoveries to make if you haven't explored Sauvignon Blanc quite yet. I hope you enjoyed today's video. I hope you've learned something, and I will see you soon with our next video for the Bonner Private Wines Club coming up next week. Au revoir. Bye-bye. If you've enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a quick thumb up, a blue thumb up to support before you go, and do have a look at the Bonner Private Wine Club through the link in the video description to get early access to more wine education videos just like this one, and more importantly to get access to fascinating wines that we select for you from all around the world. I will see you soon in the wonderful world of wine. Cheers. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.